Welcome to our last meeting in the month of April already. Somehow this year is flying by. It seems like it's a beautiful day outside. The sun is shining. It's not as warm as we all like it to be, but before we know it, we're going to be sitting outside at the park melting as we hope for some cooler weather. So really excited to see all the flowers starting to bloom, and in our industry everything's growing really well, and so it's been a great spring so far. Really wet spring, but so far pretty good. Let's start off with some guests. I know Heather is back again. She's almost not a guest, so welcome back, Heather. And then Rick, you have our guest speaker, so I'll let you introduce him officially here in just a minute or so. So let's jump right in. I know Leah is ready to jump up, so Leah, go for it.
I'm too old to jump up. I passed out to you what went out to a lot of the businesses, the club letter about the July celebration and the entertainment sponsor contract form. And you as a Rotarian can sponsor even on your own without being a business. So that saved us the stamp.
And
very much.
we merged some new businesses in this year.
Okay.
She actually did most of the work for the Excel file, because that I don't do, but provided her with the list. So, and I'm sure there, with all the new businesses in this area, there's probably just as many that weren't reached out to. So if you as a Rotarian know somebody that's a business owner, extend the invitation. And, you know, give them a copy of the letter or something like that, and if they want to. And I'll even follow up with a phone call to them if you tell me you did that, and remind them. Because a lot of times they wouldn't, they'd be like, yeah, I'll think about it, and they'll do it if they get a reminder phone call, but that way I'll know to call them on the call list.
All right, thank you.
There's one thing I've learned about Michelle, she's not afraid to ask for support from the public for a lot of
Especially for not-for-profit situations, those are easy phone calls for
They
them.
are.
Yeah.
They are. Who else has something they want to share? Happy bucks for the club. Miranda.
In another life, I think I'd be a string instrument player. I love orchestral music, and I had the opportunity to learn violin or anything like that. And I love the sound of the cello. And I don't know how long Yo-Yo Ma has been in my consciousness, but maybe since he was on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood years ago, I don't know. But I always thought he was really cool, and that it would be neat to see him in person. And he was at the DePaul maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and tickets went in a flash, so that wasn't happening. But he was at IU Auditorium last night, and Jeff and I got to go and see and hear him. So now I can say I've seen and heard Yo-Yo Ma in person.
Awesome. It's great. You're like the third or fourth person I know now that was there last night, so it's been a really popular event. Mike.
I believe Yo-Yo Ma graduated from IU, didn't he?
No.
Sure.
Well, to Juilliard, super young, like age 7, and he graduated from Harvard. I don't think this is maybe his first time having done something there. He spoke very highly of the IU school.
He's a rap artist, right?
Yeah.
No,
No,
well, never mind.
Mike, go ahead.
That's great. I don't know how many of you read the Rotary magazine. There was an article on page 22 that caught my eye, talking about being a radio DJ, and I read the article and thought, well, change the dates and the names and the places. It could have been me. It talked about how he sent it into advertising sales, which is where the money is, and then eventually owning a station somewhere, I don't know before. But anyway, I'll pay $1 for that article. I'm going to give the magazine here to Heather, since she's coming into the club. She could read, but I didn't read.
Who else has something they want to share?
So, I had an opportunity to go and be a special speaker for a church south of Indianapolis in Franklin. And it was really neat. If you ever wonder where are things religiously, are people still interested in all that? So they advertised this far and wide, and they had a bring a friend situation. Well, they did so well that we doubled the number of people that they'd had there in the morning for this afternoon session. Doubled the number, and it's just so neat to see them going into the basement, bringing up the metal chairs, setting those up in the aisles. And so every place you could put a person had a person. In fact, there are 3 people actually standing in the foyer because there's no place to sit. And you know, somehow that's just extremely encouraging to see that level of interest in spiritual things. So that's my happy life.
Awesome. Sounds like it was a good time. Chris started to raise his hand.
Yeah, I'm just happy to finally be back through a tax season, so make a full meeting this time. This had really great business, but it's also very stressful. To appreciate it all. But I just want to remind everybody about the fun run going on. Monday night we had 18 come for the first night, which is a little low, but I was really late getting advertising and stuff out. It didn't get on Facebook till Saturday, so, and I know at least 5 more that's for sure coming that just weren't there Monday. So hopefully we get those numbers up. Every Monday and Thursday over at the Cow House, we start at 6. And we're done within half an hour. Tomorrow we'll be doing just a quarter, so as long as a couple people there, we're fine. But as we go on and start going farther, we'll need some more Rotarians there to help tell them the turns and kind of watch traffic and stuff. I'll contact the police department to see if they can help there at the pool like they normally do. There's a couple of practices last year they missed and stuff. If they get called, they have to leave. So we have enough to watch the road crossings and stuff as we start going farther and down towards the track and stuff to help with that. But then I have a few forms if you do know somebody. In general, we do 5 to 12, but younger kids, especially siblings, sometimes we have to do it because they're anyway with their brothers and sisters, so we elect if they can make it, that's fine. So if you know anybody that'd be interested, we're doing like school contest again, so we'll keep track, and once again, as the practices and the run, the school with the most participation will get a $100 donation. So Staunton's won once and Jackson's won once, so we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Chris.
There's some good firsts and there's some not so good firsts. Today's April 27th. It's the first time that Mom is not here to wish her happy birthday. She would have been 88 today. But what I'm happy about is a good memory. She was a good mom, raised a good family, and take care of your loved ones. That's what I'm happy about.
Roger.
Well, Fred said his mother's birthday is today.
Yeah.
Today would have been my father's birthday also. He would have been 107 today.
Wow. Anything else for the club before we have Rick come on up?
Today's my brother's birthday, but he's 4 years younger than I
See what you did there? I figured that out. All right, so I'm still been getting some feedback about the bistro and everything. Please keep sending that our way. And like I said, maybe in a phone call or an email, I can't remember now. No final decision has been made yet at all. We're still working some details out and everything. So don't get all excited that, you know, one day we're going to up and leave Cilantros and never come back here again without further discussing it more. So please keep sending feedback, and we appreciate all the comments, good, bad, and ugly, and indifferent, just to make sure that a decision is made among the group that we can agree with. Charlie.
I have one question concerning that.
Yeah.
Has it been discussed that will they be able to help us out in the wintertime?
That is on my list of questions for Jody and Andy to just kind of hash out and figure out some more stuff, yeah.
Because
for
I
sure.
know they're closed during the
Right,
winter.
right, absolutely. So. The representative right there, just let us know. So.
There's a Rotarian.
All right, Rick. Oh, Heather, sorry. Go for it, Heather.
It was a year ago tomorrow that I had my catastrophic brain bleed. And they said that I am lucky to be alive. Multiple times, neurologists looked at me and said, you should be dead, but here I am. So, enjoy me. 'Cause
It definitely is a good happy buckery to be here. And that's a crazy story, and I remember when we saw it on Facebook and followed along, so we are glad that you are here with us. Anything else? All right, Rick, it's all you.
My name's Rick. I've been in Clay County most of my life. I got 2 daughters, a stepdaughter, 2 sons, a stepson. I got 12 grandkids. I'm gonna be a great grandpa. And I got a lovely wife, Ann. Got a good neighbor. Used to be a neighbor, Kevin. Glad to be here. That's it.
Introduce her.
This is Kevin,
Akis.
Akis.
Is that my clue blew up?
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, he's our former neighbor, and Rick was a very good neighbor, him and Ann, and we missed them. But we got good neighbors now. They're quiet. But anyway, my name is Kevin Akis. My wife and I, we own and operate Inside Out Recovery. We've spoken here before and talked a little bit, some of you know a little bit about Inside Out Recovery. We are a ministry where we bring guys out of prison. We're a residential facility. They live there. We're a 1 to 2 year program. We're not a short-term program. We firmly believe that, the guys did not get into their mess overnight, and we can't fix them in 30 days. So that's why we're a 1 to 2 year program. But however, today I'm not going to be talking about Inside Out Recovery. I want to talk about another aspect of our ministry, which is prison ministry. And a lot of people really just sort of have prison outside of their minds. We just don't even think about it much today. How many of you thought about guys in prison today? Anybody? A few. All right. Well, great. Because I was actually at prison this morning and was meeting with a few guys and was talking to them. And somebody says, well, the people out there they need to know, or I'd like them to know. And I was saying, probably most people that we come in contact on the outside has forgotten about you guys. And that's just a reality of it. We just don't think about those that are incarcerated. And we know they're there for a reason. There's a lot of people inside prison. They need to be there. And that's great. But lives do change while in prison. And so there are many opportunities for the guys to take programs and learn things and change. One of the programs that we teach and lead out at Putnamville, which is what I was doing this morning, is called the Quest for Authentic Manhood. A lot of guys have never had a father figure in their life, and if they had, it wasn't a good father figure, and so they really haven't learned how to process life, and they make a lot of mistakes because they guess at it. I was talking to a group of people here a while back, and I asked the question, I said, how many of you attend, now most of what I talk about is going to be gender specific, related to boys or to men, things like that, because we're in a ministry for men, so I don't take offense if I leave the ladies out. Most of what I say also applies to the ladies. But I was asking the question, how many of you attend your son's ball games? And almost every hand went up, and that's really good because that means that parents and people are being actively involved. And I asked the question, how many of you help with their homework? And again, almost all the hands went up because people are do want to be involved in their kid's life. But then I ask what I believe to be a more substantive type question. And it's like the question is, how many of you have taught your son what it means to be a man? No hands went up. How many of you taught your son to how to relate to a woman and interact with her in appropriate ways? No hands went up. Do you teach your son how to date and interact with the opposite sex? What his role is as a man when he gets married? See, these are questions that people don't have answers to. And these are questions that young men growing up, and even older men at our age, we need to know the answers to these questions. But we don't have answers. And so we end up leaving a generation of people guessing at how to do life. So at the Quest for Authentic Manhood, we learned what it means so much. We've all been taught what conventional manhood is. And conventional manhood has it wrong. That's probably what most of us in this room are thinking about what a man is. We are learning what it means to be an authentic man as modeled by what Jesus Christ taught us in the Word of God. And so how can we take his life and apply it to our lives and do things different? So we learn over the course of time, it's a 6-month program that we go through, that a real man is one who rejects passivity. Most men typically sit idly by and just let life happen. We don't pursue things with a purpose. So the first thing is we learn to reject passivity. The next thing is we learn to accept responsibility. There's a lot of things that as men and women too that we need to be responsible for and take personal responsibility for that. And then we learn that a real man is one who leads courageously. Not only do we need to lead in the home, we also need to lead our families, we also need to lead in the community, we need to lead in our businesses. We need to be leaders. And as I look around a room here, I see leaders, men and women alike. We're leaders in the community. And those are things that we need to learn to do. And so today, one of the things that we did discuss, and I'm going to talk about with you briefly, is today we were on session 4, which is unpacking our manhood. And we learned that as men growing up, that we brought with us some wounds into adulthood. And the first wound that we looked at today was the absent father wound. Now, there's a lot of guys in prison that we come in contact with that their dad just wasn't there. He was gone. The dad gave him a name, and then he left. And so that's all they got. And so we learned in how to deal with that absent father wound. And there's probably some of you guys in here today that grew up without dad. And that shaped us and formed us. Now, some guys grow up where dad is in the home, but he isn't there. You know what I mean? He's there, but not there. He's just distant. Another wound that we looked at this morning is the overly bonded with mother wound. When dad is absent, mom has to step in and fill that role. A role that she's not really supposed to fill, but has to. And so we need to applaud the women who step in and fill the gap when the man is absent. But yet it creates a wound in a young boy's life because of the absent dad or becoming overly bonded with his mother. The other one is the all alone wound. Now, I think a lot of men face this wound. We have acquaintances, we know a lot of people, but yet we're still all alone. When we get together and we talk with each other, we talk surface, we talk sports, we talk weather. We don't talk about the real things that go deep down within our soul that we need to address, getting to the spiritual issues of things. You know, those are the deep substance things that guys need to talk about and share. But if we stay all alone, then we tend to process things in our own minds, and we make a lot of mistakes. And a lot of guys end up in prison because of that. The other one is just a lack of a manhood vision. Meaning they don't really know what their role is or how they're supposed to fulfill it, or even do they even have an identity as a man. And so they have this lack of vision that really excites them. And that's a shame because Scripture is full of vision for us. We just tend to not grab a hold of it and apply it to our lives. And then, of course, the last wound we talked about today was the wounded heart. And that is a wound that everybody shares. And that goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve sinned. That broken heart, that wound, that sin that entered in, we all share that And how do we break free from that? And how do we live different lives? And so inside Putnamville Prison every week, every Wednesday morning, we're going through these things as to what it means to be a man. And how can we make better choices and move forward and not repeat the same mistakes we did in the past. And so I share that with you because that's what they need inside prison. But what I'm also finding out, this room here needs those same sort of things. And I needed that in my life. And so while I go inside Putnamville Prison, been doing that for about 15 years, running programs like this, I also run them on the outside at Inside Out Recovery. And all of our programs that we do at Inside Out Recovery, while they are for the men who live there, they're also open to all of the community. So if I said anything that sparked an interest on what it means to be a man, reject passivity, accept responsibility, lead courageously, and we do it all for God's glory, then you can attend one of our programs there as well. Now, today, I was asking a group of guys, I said, okay, when I get done here, I'm going to go to the Rotary Club, and I'm going to speak to them. What do you want me to tell them? What would you like them to know? So here are some thoughts coming from guys in prison today from this morning at Putnamville. First of all, they would like you to know that they appreciate the people who come in to volunteer, because what it does is it gives them a connection to the outside world, which they don't have much of. Their whole world is contained there. And so it gives them this connection from the outside world that there's people out there thinking about them. So while I am here talking to you, every one of you are now thinking about somebody in prison. You may or may not know them, but they're there. And so that puts that onto your mind. It's important for them to know that people out there do think about them, that they do care. And when they get out, because this is something I keep telling the guys quite often at Putnamville, it's like, you guys are here. They can't keep you forever. You're going to get out, right? What are you going to do when you get out? How are you going to be different? How are you not going to repeat the same mistakes? And unfortunately, the answer is we have to go back into our past, understand the wounds that we have, how do we change the outcome of that and move into a better future. One of the other guys, he said that, well, what I would want them to know is, and I'm trying to remember how he worded, because he said it so perfectly, that it's important for you to know their stories. Because everybody there has a story, just like you all have a story. And they want you to know their story. But the problem is, how can they tell you their story? Well, so one of the guys said, well, if maybe we could write out our testimonies and share our story and put it into a newsletter somewhere. And so I told him, I said, you know what? Inside Out Recovery sends out a newsletter. Write down your stories. We will get it published and put out there. So we can hear about the stories of them. Because listen, prison is not a good place. Nobody really wants to go there. Nobody wants to be there. But inside prison is an opportunity for many men to change their lives and come out being a better person. I had a young gentleman a few years ago. He was telling me when he completed one of our programs, Celebrate Recovery, he said, I really thought I was going to prison to learn to be a better criminal. That was my expectation. I never thought I would learn how to be a man. And so he was able to grow inside that environment and come out a much better person. And so these are some of the things that people want you to know. And another gentleman, he said, well, I want them to know, he said, I think a lot of people have the idea that prison is horrible and it's terrible and everything bad happens in here. He said, but look around this room. There are some people here, men here, who are wanting to change and do things differently, and we're trying to make a positive impact on our families even while we're in here. And I want them to know that we're in here, we're trying to change, and we want to be better. And when we get out, we don't want to carry the stigma of being an ex-felon with us for the rest of our lives. Because we place that stigma on people. Oh, you've been to prison? I already know about you. I can remember one time I was talking with a lady that I worked with, and she found out that I was in doing Inside Out Recovery, and I was involved in prison ministry, and she made the comment, those people messed up, and they just need to stay there. We don't need them here in our town. That was her belief. but she didn't really know my background. And so I leaned across the table and I said, I thought you liked working with me. She goes, oh, I do like working with you. I said, I'm one of those. The next day I was walking by the break room and she was in there at the table and she was crying. So I went in, I sat down with her, I said, what's going on? Something seems bothering you. She goes, I owe you an apology. I judged a whole group of people and I was wrong. They want you to know, some of them are changing. Some of them are not. In fact, most of them are probably going to get out and go back. But there is a group of men who are changing right now in Putnamville that is going to come out, and they're going to be better men, better husbands, better fathers, better leaders in our community because of programs of people going inside Putnamville to lead them, guide them, and show them there is a better way. Now, in closing, what I want to do is, most of you know, well, maybe not all, some of you know Roger, right? Roger Doolin?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Know that extra one?
Well, a few years ago, Roger joined with us, and he went into Putnamville Prison, and he ministered alongside us to a group of guys going through the quest for authentic manhood. And I thought it would be good for you to hear from Roger's point of view on what it meant to be a volunteer as well.
About 3 years ago, I went up with Kevin. Kevin spoke here about 4 years ago, maybe. And I asked him, I said, is there anything I could do to help? So he called me up later. And I went through, I don't know how many pages you have to fill out.
Can't take that in with you.
No. Just to get your clearance to be a level 2 volunteer to go into Putnamville. Your whole life history has to be done first. But I went with Kevin for, well, how many?
About 7 months.
7 or 8 months
Yeah.
to finish the course. And then we got cut off 2 years ago when the COVID hit. And I haven't been able to go back, and I don't know how much he's able to go back now. But to hear those guys, it means a lot to them just to take your time to come in and just talk to him. And I was just a helper, but I talked to a lot of them. Sometimes he'd have me give the opening prayer, sometimes I give the closing prayer. But some of the guys would tell me, I'm not the same person I was before, and I've wrote letters to the judges, the lawyers, that's, the chemicals are out of my body. I'm changed now, but I still have to do the time. And it's, they tell me something, it is horrible in there, the abuse that they have to go through by some people. But they were so glad to see you when you came in. And last year, at the 4th of July, it was happy for me because I came into Kevin's place over there where he sets up his Saudi Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the person there was Kelly, who was one of the prisoners then that I hadn't saw for a year and 4 or 5 months. In there working with Kevin, he told me how he's doing now, where he's working at, his car he's driving, and how it's so. And it was good to just go up and hug this guy. And how many people in here know what the Emmaus Walk is? A lot of people do. Well, in prison, they've got a part of it's called the Kairos, where instead of your pilgrims coming to at Clay City, they're all in prison. And our team was about 36 people. We had 36 pilgrims. And sit at your table, and for the 3 days, we got to go home, but they got to go back to the dormitories. But they were so happy, they couldn't believe. You guys come in here, you show us love, you take your own time, you spend $500 to come and do this for these 3 days, and we're just overwhelmed. And some of the stories that you hear, like Kevin said, no fathers, mothers not around, grandparents raised them, and they had to go out on their own 14, 15 years old, and they just didn't know any other way to how to do the things. But at my table, we had a Muslim, and he said, I'm not one of these Muslims, I'm not going to try to kill you or anything, but I've heard about this Christianity, and I wanted to come and see what it's all about. And by the end of it, he was hugging everybody, and he said, you have made an impact on my life. You have really made an impact. And the others, by, like I said, just showing them a little bit of love, a little bit of time with them, makes a big difference.
Thank you, Roger.
And it's good to see some of the others that I was in there, that came to our class, to see them on the outside now. Kevin showed me about a couple of them, and it's good to hear that they were, how about 3 weeks ago, when Shauna Fry spoke up here? Remember that? What she does now, she works at the Wabash Valley Recovery. That's my daughter. She spent 4.5 years in federal prison for drugs. And now she works Wabash Valley Recovery, has her own office, does a very good job, works with the lawyers, judges in Terre Haute, and has changed her life so much. All these men and women both can become rehabilitated if they want to, but they have to want to.
Let's open it up for questions. Thank you, Roger.
Yeah, Kevin.
All right, I don't have anything else to share, but I do thank you for the opportunity to come and share what we're doing so far. But does anybody, before I go, does anybody have any questions that you'd like to ask? Maybe specifically about prison ministry or just prison itself? Yes.
So, obviously they let you in, but how supportive is the prison system then in your experience to promote these programs or encourage these programs?
It's a very good question. Putnamville Prison is very open and very supportive of what we're doing. We feel very welcome, we're encouraged. Putnamville Prison has more prison ministries than most any other prison that I'm familiar with. And so we are very, very blessed in our community that Putnamville Prison is open. It's not a struggle, it's not a burden. In fact, they are asking us to come, and they encourage us, and they're looking for more. In fact, the chaplains are very supportive. Whenever we were not able to go in during the pandemic, we were shut down for almost 2 years. So during that time, we weren't able to go in. And every time a chaplain walked through the yard, he says the number one question he would ask is, when's Celebrate Recovery coming back? When's Celebrate Recovery coming back? And he kept saying, I don't know. And so he called me up one day and he goes, I really hate to ask this. He goes, but they're wanting to Celebrate Recovery. He goes, I know that's your ministry. He goes, but they would like to start. It's like, first of all, it's not mine, it's God's. And so whatever you need, if you're going to start it without us and get it going. And so the chaplain even started our program in our absence and run it while we were gone until we were able to come back. That he did on his own time, not on his paid time. So yeah, we're very welcome there. Yes?
When you said it's a 1 to 2 year program, is it like a halfway house situation where you're actually housing them, or do you find housing for them and then they meet with you?
We are in the old Clay Health and Rehabilitation Nursing Home.
Okay.
Ideal location for us. It's a residential facility. They live there. So they come and they live at our facility for that 1 to 2 years.
Do you have any like needs for like towels, soap? How do you get funding for that? Or do you take donations for that kind
Good
of
question.
thing?
We take donations. Our funding that we receive comes from individuals and some local area churches. We do not receive any state or federal funding. State and federal funding has strings attached with their money.
What kind of things do you need there?
We need things like every household would need.
Okay.
We need sheets, pillows, bedclothes, bed stuff like that. All of our beds are full-size bed. We're switching over to one size, full size. So we need that. We need underwear, socks, t-shirts, just anything like that, any clothing, even used clothing we accept and put it into a room for the guys. Because sometimes when guys come to our facility and they're coming out of prison, all they have are the clothes they're wearing on their back. And that was donated to them by prison, depending on how long they've been in there. So they have nothing. And so when they come to our place, we have everything that we provide them for all of their needs, clear down to the toothbrush and toenail clippers. So we need donations of every kind. Food, however, we have an abundance of food. We are very, very blessed. All right, so we still get churches that still donate a lot of food to us, and we appreciate it. We use it, and it gets. But food donations were good. Any other questions? Pardon me?
No more spaghetti.
We will eat spaghetti, absolutely.
All right, well.
I think
Thank you
probably
very
speak
much.
for another 20 minutes. Don't run away yet.
I got 20 more minutes?
No.
Oh.
Next week. Well, we got I think we're at top 10 next week, so I can get the pen out of here. This is a nice Rotary pen for you. It's got our logo on it.
Awesome.
Rob, could you take a picture for me here? Since you've been a guest speaker before, I'm pretty sure you've got all the other.
Andrew, could you put a good smile on?
That's as good as you're getting.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming and everything that you do for the community. It's wonderful. When I walked in and I saw him here, I'm like, I know you from somewhere, and it's the Saudi Bombers, so, and the Lemonade Shake-Ups.
Yes.
So, a couple weeks ago, I got Mark Adamson with a joke, and he was speechless, and I've been so proud of it. And it was the greatest thing ever, but I got another one for you, Mark. But that pen that I just gave him, you know it can write underwater? It can also write other words too, but I just want to let you know.
I have a question.
Yes.
If it writes underwater, do you have the paper that goes with it?
No. If there's a collective groan from a joke that I tell, then I know I did good. So, all right. Well, thank you again, Kevin, for coming and giving your presentation here. We have a next couple weeks are pretty filled with some students coming in for the top 10. And we joked last week that like Clay City is going to have like a 17-way tie for their first place. So we'll see what happens. So we're going to have some students in and out the next couple of meetings between Northview and Clay City. So that's always a really exciting time. And then we're going to be real close to the 4th of July. So if there's nothing else for the good of the club, we'll rise and say the 4-way test. Get out of here. Of the things we think, say, or do,
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
No, I typically don't eat the meat, and that's all cards.